The coffin draped in the national flag. Distraught relatives and friends embracing. The deaths of 21 soldiers yesterday, the deadliest single incident for Israel since the war began. On a daily basis, 5-10 times as many Palestinians are killed. But it's their own losses that Israelis are focused on. The soldiers were planting explosives to demolish homes in Gaza close to the border when it's believed Hamas fighters fired on them, triggering a huge blast. Anger directed at the Israeli government had been rising, but these deaths seem to have had a unifying effect, at least for now. Let us show our enemies that we are strong, says the father of this dead soldier, that we don't break. Please say with me 3 times, the people of Israel live. Prime Minister Netanyahu had been facing discontent, even from within his war cabinet, over the failure to secure the release of the remaining Israeli hostages. But today, everyone was on the same page.
While we bow our heads in memory of our fallen, we are not relenting, even for a moment, in striving for the goal that has no alternative, achieving total victory.
And so the war continues. Black smoke hangs above the city of Khan Yunis, the latest focus of Israel's ferocious assault. The hospital here is overwhelmed. Less than half in Gaza are functioning at all anymore. A father shields his daughter's eyes as a medic stitches her wound. It's all he can do to protect her. Many of the staff here have fled for their lives, and there aren't enough medical supplies. We spoke to one doctor who's just left the territory.
One of the stories that marked me the most, that I will never forget, is a little girl named Miriam in European hospital. She was 6-7 years old, something like this. Part of her face was burnt by the airstrike. Her right leg was amputated. Her brother was killed. Her sister was killed. Her mother was killed. So I'm doing the round with the nurses, and we have to change the dressing of Miriam. And for this kind of things, there is no anesthetic. So she's 7 years old, in a complete distressed mental state. And you had to change the bandage and to clean the wound without any anesthetic. She was screaming for half an hour, yelling, screaming, fighting to try to avoid it. And after half an hour of crying, she was exhausted and she was just calling for him. And then we look at each other and say, okay, her mom is just died, so there is no one to comfort her.
The Israeli army today said it discovered a major Hamas tunnel and rocket manufacturing base in Khan Yunis. No end to the fighting looks imminent after the group rejected an Israeli offer of a 2-month ceasefire in exchange for the hostages. Hamas is demanding a complete cessation of hostilities, which Israel refuses. Palestinians, many of whom fled to Khan Yunis on the orders of the Israeli army, are now fleeing again. But death and destruction are everywhere in Gaza.
Former Israeli hostage negotiator and peace activist Gershon Baskin joins me now from Jerusalem. Gershon, it's good to speak to you again. Every day is a bad day for Palestinians in Gaza at the moment. This was a really bad day for Israel. Does a tragedy like this put more pressure on the Prime Minister to try and come up with a deal to release the hostages?
I'm afraid not yet. There is pressure mounting on the Prime Minister and the War Cabinet to make a deal for the hostages. This is why Israel finally initiated a deal and proposed something to Hamas via the Qataris and the Egyptians, a 2-month ceasefire and a release of all the hostages. But this is not sufficient for what Hamas is demanding, which is a complete cessation, as the wars was reported, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza entirely, and then a deal of releasing all Palestinian prisoners in exchange for all the Israeli hostages. The Israeli government is not yet ready to accept that kind of deal. It will take more time to build pressure on the government from the families and from society to reach that.
But because that kind of deal would essentially mean leaving Hamas in charge of the Gaza Strip, that goes against everything the Prime Minister has been saying. So I can't imagine that deal ever happening.
Well, you have to understand it in the context that the deal is necessary to bring the hostages home. There's no other way to bring the hostages home. Israel has no victory if the hostages don't come home. And let's face reality, there's nothing to stop Israel from renewing the war after the hostages are back. Yeah. I'm sure that Hamas will provide ample excuses for Israel to launch an attack, whether it be terrorist attacks by Hamas in the West Bank or East Jerusalem or from the Gaza Strip. There's also nothing to preclude Israel from rearresting prisoners that are released that might endanger Israel's security or might return to terrorism. There would be over 700 Palestinian prisoners who were released who are already serving life sentences for killing Israelis, including the 130 Hamas terrorists who committed the atrocities in Israel on October 7th.
Okay, I just want to move on to this argument about the two-state solution. Netanyahu has said very clearly, I don't believe in a two-state solution. The Americans, the Brits, just about everyone else still wants a two-state solution. When Netanyahu refuses to accept that, is he in line with Israeli public opinion now?
I think it's very difficult to judge Israeli public opinion now because we're in the middle of the war and everyone is very emotional and still traumatic from what happened on October 7th. The reality is that, as Hillary Clinton used to say, the people of Israel and Palestine have to want it more than us is no longer true. This war has spilled over into the region. It can expand even further, and it imposes a danger to regional and international security. It's time for countries like the United Kingdom, who have spoken about a two-state solution for 30 years, to come out and recognize the state of Palestine. The United States and the other European nations must do so as well. What we need to have happen is to remove the veto on Palestinian statehood from Israel. That should not be a negotiating issue. That should be a fait accompli. And then the international community needs to work with Israel and its neighbors, the Palestinians, the Egyptians, Jordanians, Emiratis, Bahrainis, Moroccans, the Saudis, everyone to work out a regional architecture for security, stability, economic development. And let's face the point that Israel will not have security if Palestinians don't have freedom and dignity, and Palestinians won't have freedom and dignity if Israel doesn't have security.
Right. So is one possible solution here that you have yet another Israeli election where Israel elects a leader who can actually get the country behind that kind of solution that you just outlined?
We will have that. Netanyahu's days are numbered. When this war is over, he will be held to account for his responsibility of bringing Israel to where it is now, to October 7th, and 56 years of occupation by Israel of the Palestinians, with the imagination that we could actually live in peace under those circumstances. That blew up in our faces on October 7th.
Gershon Baskin, thank you very much indeed for your time.